Welcome to episode 176 of the Lone Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about some players to watch out for in tonight's clash between USA and Canada at the World Juniors. So, obviously, very exciting matchup. We have very few times where we get to see them in the same group and at the same time be able to play each other in the round robin stage before the medal round. So, that's going to be very exciting. We're going to be able to see a lot of good players, a lot of exciting players, and there's been a lot of players on both sides that have been really good to start the tournament. And obviously, I feel like both sides want a little bit more out of their team. Like USA wants a little bit more out of Trey Augustine and net. Canada wants a little bit more offensively. And I feel like there's a good mix in this game where there's going to be teams looking to get better and they're going to be looking to find ways to improve. And this could be a big stepping stone throughout because you have this game and then you have the medal round starting pretty soon. So it's going to be very important for both teams, obviously, and it's going to be very crucial for both teams, but at the same time, very exciting for everybody to watch and be a part of. So with USA, obviously, Ryan Leonard off to a hot start in the tournament, and you look at his production, how he's getting to inside space, how he's able to create offense. He's so unique in the sense because he plays like he's 6'3" or 6'4" and he's 6 foot. And he just has that inner drive, that compete and that tenacity, be able to get through guys, get around guys, check guys, be able to do whatever it takes to win hockey games. And he's always noticeable. And you always notice him, even when he's not producing offensively, you always notice him in some way, shape, or form, whether it's defensively, shutting plays down on the forecheck, somewhere along those lines. That whole line with Perot, Higgins, and Leonard's just been dominant to start the tournament. And to no surprise, they've been dominant at BC as well. And they've just really connected throughout the season. It's been BC's top line, and they've just been rolling on throughout every single game in the NCAA. So translating that to the World Juniors has been effortless for those three. So we don't really need to talk about those three. I just feel like those guys have just been so key for them and so relied upon heavily throughout the tournament thus far. James Hagan seems to produce, and we'll talk about him quickly. James Hagan seems to produce at every single tournament, whether it's U18s or U17s, whatever it may be. He always seems to produce. He set the tournament record at the U18s for over 20 points, and I forget who he surpassed. It might have been Nikita Kucherov and a couple other players in the tournament, but he has always produced at every single international tournament. So international play seems to come easy for him, which is really unique because some players they don't translate that as well, and it doesn't become as easy for them. But James Higgins, you just watch his game and you feel like you can see the first overall pick upside still in this game. And I know it's a short tournament, it's only a week and a half ish or so, but at the same time, James Higgins, he's in that consensus and was at that consensus at the start of the year to be a first overall pick. So you look at where his game's at right now, and I would argue he's still up there, if not second overall. I would say at worst second overall, but he's definitely in that top three range right now. It's just more a matter of where he goes. But Hagen's so skilled, so fun to watch, so exciting to watch, and brings a lot of skill and tenacity and flair, obviously. The interesting thing with USA right now is in net. So you have Hampton Sukinski, who had played really well the other day. Trey Augustine's coming off a goal that he let up against Finland in overtime that he would have easily wanted back. It's just snuck over his glove, which goalies, it's not it like he was lined up to the save, he was angled to the save, and he didn't make it. He just didn't catch it in his glove like usual. So it's just one of those tournaments where obviously he was so good last year, but this year he's still trying to find it, which is you could argue a little bit concerning in some ways, but luckily Slukinski's played well. It's just gonna be interesting to see how Augustine plays the rest of this tournament. USA's been fine. Like their offense and defense has been fine. They haven't had too many troubles offensively. So it's just more a matter of where they are in net, I feel like right now. And then you look at Canada on the opposite side, you're like, okay, you see a team that's very productive in many ways, a lot of NHL experience throughout their lineup. You get guys like Jet Luchenko, Callum Ritchie, and some other guys in there who have already had NHL experience to start this season. You have some other guys in that mix who are super skilled, and you have some good leadership who can play deeper in the lineup. Braden Yeager's been up and down the bottom nine. He's played some time in the fourth line. That's how deep Canada is offensively. Like they just have a lot of weapons. It's just confusing as to why they can't produce offensively. I've watched them every single game, and they just haven't been super impressed with their ozone play. I feel like something's been off there, and and I feel like they've been off to their standards as well. It's just really interesting to watch there. You get guys like Easton Cowan. Like Easton Cowan's had a really great tournament. I talked about him briefly before. I'm just curious to see how he translates to the NHL. I know he's a good player. I know he's a first round pick. I'm curious to see. I could totally see him being a guy who starts off as a third or fourth liner in the NHL because of his competitiveness and his tenacity and his forechecking ability alone. And you can add some skill to that as well. I don't necessarily envision him becoming a top six player for them right away. It's similar to Fraser Minton, where Fraser Minton was playing for a set period of time. He was playing third line center for them, and he was up and down the third and fourth line. He was playing. There was occasion where he would play wing inside the second line, but rarely ever did he get to the first. So I feel like it's going to be something similar when we see Cowan come up to the NHL. I know he's probably going to have to go through the AHL first and then the NHL, but it's him. It's really interesting with him because he's got a lot of skill, he's got a lot of tenacity, he's got a lot of forechecking ability, he's got a lot of speed, and I'm curious to see how he translates. I feel like he's going to be a good player, and he has the potential to be a good player for a long time. It's just more a matter of how he translates his offensive skills to the next level and to the pro level. So that's interesting with him. Honestly, I've really liked Jet Luchenko every single game I've watched him. I feel like the consistency in his game is there. You know what you're getting out of him defensively in terms of his shutdown center. You know what you're getting out of him in terms of his roots, and I like his roots in terms of his awareness, how he's able to swing under, support his D low, be able to support plays as a centerman. Because as a center, you have to be involved in almost every facet of the play, whether it's breakouts, transition, or breakouts, exits, transition, entries, ozone play. Like you're kind of the center of everything. No pun intended, but literally, like he's always a part of everything. In on the ice, he always seems to be in conjunction with the rest of his teammates and his line mates, which is a really good sign to see. He's really skilled. He's really fun to watch. Another guy I really liked last game and has continued to build on his games thus far is Gavin McKenna. I feel like that's no surprise. But that last game that he had, I was really impressed with his ability to use manipulation, use that toe drag release that's so weaponized in his game and just be a guy who can be a lethal threat offensively from danger ice. And he was doing that a lot last game, where you saw him be able to control puck possession in interior, inside the dots, and he was very effective there. And at the same time, you watch him more in depth, and you're like, okay, he's actually creating volume on his shots too. Like it's not like he's just getting to interior and doing nothing. He's actually getting to interior for one. And then at the same time, he has that mindset to try and attack. So that's a really good sign to see out of him. I'm curious, like he's played anywhere from the 13th forward to the second line. And so the range is wide for where he could play. I would envision he's somewhere between the second and third line today because that last game that he had was good. It's just building off that. I feel like building off that has to allow him to be able to maintain consistency. So if he's playing in a deeper role with less ice time, I don't feel like he's going to gain that consistency in a short time frame. But McKenna's been good. I wouldn't say electric per se, but he's been really fun to watch, really exciting to watch. He brings a lot of talent, obviously. We know how skilled he is, and he's so interesting to watch all across the board with his flair, his offensive ability, and his tenacity as well. He's underratedly competitive when it comes to being able to get pucks back, retrieve pucks back, and work to get pucks back. So he's been good. And just some other guys like Berkeley Catton, I've noticed arguably almost every single game. I feel like I noticed him a lot in the pre-tournament too. With Catton, he's so unique in the sense because you're getting a play driver out of him offensively. You're getting a guy who can be able to be relied upon in so many offensive situations, whether it's east-west or coming off the half wall or trying to create space individually one-on-one or creating rushes with speed in the neutral zone and transition. Like he's got a lot of versatility to his game. I feel like that's why Seattle liked him because he's a play driver and his offensive analytics have also showcased that. He's a play driver both at 5-on-5 and, of course, on the power play. He's really weaponized on the power play. He's playing first unit, and he's so relied upon heavily in so many offensive situations. So, a lot of guys to watch throughout this game. It's going to be a very exciting matchup, and there's going to be a lot of players who are going to be really separating themselves throughout this game thus far.